we talk about subjects no other conference talks about. And what those of you who are moving on to US NIC in Houston after this, I'm pretty sure you're not going to hear about the critical materials aspect of advanced reactors and all that. Kind of one of those things, it's like whistling past the graveyard. Ned, why don't you come up and help the audience understand the somewhat not awesome, kind of dire situation we have when it comes to how are we going to build these things when we really don't have the material to do so.
I am, first of all, Ned Mamula. I'm the chief geologist at Green Tech Minerals Holding, otherwise known as GreenMet. We are a mining, mineral, metallurgy advocacy firm, and we're in D.C. on K Street. I was formerly with USGS. That's where I got my minerals background many years ago. And up until a year or so ago when I joined GreenMet, I was actually running the DOE Critical Minerals Program, directing that critical minerals program, small and such as it is, but still. They don't have any geologists in the chain of command, so I got a great opportunity to work with them on that. But I had to move on and do other things. Today I want to talk to you, and by the way, I want to let you know that I know I'm the only thing between you and lunch, so I'm going to be Johnny on the spot. I'm going to be getting my message out to you quickly and efficiently, I hope. But I want to talk to you about something that you feel strongly about, and that is American mineral wealth. And there's two things today that I want to touch on. First of all, American mineral wealth, and this goes for most of the world too, but especially our country, we have two things. We have an embarrassment of riches at home, domestic, and for the sake of this talk, I put on the second subtitle, we have an embarrassment of import reliance from abroad, and that's the topic John Kutch wanted me to touch on today. Why in Lord's name are we importing at wild rates? And it's getting worse every year, and I'm going to show you how we keep a handle on that. But why do we have these imports? Who's keeping tabs? How are they keeping tabs? And what have they found? And that's what I want to touch on today. And by the way, your intro today on the spiritualness of thorium and, cathedral of energy, that goes for this too. You look at a map of our country, you look at a map of these deposits, and you can't help but be struck by the fact that we have everything we'd ever need. And as my great colleague Jim Kennedy said to me once, and it was so elegant, he said, rare earths are not a resource issue. We have plenty of that. We don't know what to do with it. And I said, Jim, eureka. It's the same thing for the other critical minerals. We're losing smelters. We're losing processing facilities. We're losing it. So things are in the ground, but we don't know how to handle them. What has changed since 2017 until now? And I've broken it up into two administrations. This one here, the Trump administration from 2018 to 2021, we have had, for the first time in U.S. history, a president of the United States define what a critical mineral is. I mean, he didn't do it, he ordered it done, so we have the definition of a critical mineral in Executive Order 13817. We have a secretarial order that goes along with that, and also ordered the release of USGS professional paper 1802. Guys, if you don't have this, search usgs.gov pp 1802. You want to download that, and you want it in the upper right hand or left hand or lower right corner of your laptop, and you want it to sit there. It is one of the most unbelievable sources for critical minerals and nuclear that you're going to have out there to refer to. Also, we started to get the DOD involved in their industrial base supply reports. And for the first time, we had the USGS compile a list of critical minerals. And of course, the executive order defined what that should be, and the list came out because they met those criteria. Also, the Department of Commerce, although it was 1 year late, put out the report on calls to action called for in the executive order. And then finally, the President put out Executive Order 13953, declaring a state of emergency via a presidential determination about China and the control of rare earth elements. So you had these actions, and then what you had under this administration, you had some similar good things happen. There's a lot of DOE funding out of DOE FE. Also, EERE is the other half of DOE. In the LPO, their Loan Program Office, a lot of money going out there for research into critical minerals. I don't necessarily agree with a lot of how it's spent, but it's going out there, okay? Also, the Biden administration did put out Executive Order 14017, simply titled U.S. Supply Chain, and that is a worthwhile read, believe me. You didn't hear the word supply chain up until what, a couple, 3, 4 years ago. All of a sudden now, it's a big word. And then I won't bore you, you can read the rest of those. The list of the critical minerals put out in 2018 was re-upped in 2022, and some minerals were taken away foolishly. Okay, uranium was taken off of the list of critical minerals. Potash was taken off the list. Potash being the component of fertilizer I like to eat. Thank you very much. I guess you guys do too. Okay, I'm not happy about that. Rhenium, I don't know why. Strontium, and here's a real disappointing fact, helium. Helium, we need helium. The government's out of the helium business now. I don't know if that's a good thing, maybe it is, but helium's off the list. Rhenium's off the list, strontium's off the list, potash is off, uranium is off. I don't agree with these. Okay, that's just Ned. Zinc went on, nickel went on, copper went on, nope. Copper didn't go on. There was, for the first time I can remember, I think USGS succumbed to, shall we say, a little bit of politics. Copper should be on there. Lo and behold, DOE has a list of critical minerals, and copper is on there. Okay. Anyway, we'll see what the next update, copper should be on there. That is such a no-brainer, I can't believe it. There has been a big push in this administration for mining reform. It's really not reform. They want to get rid of the claim business. They want to end hard rock mining as we know it. This is probably not a good idea. This is where most of your critical minerals come from versus leasing. You have leasing, and you have hard rock claims, and then you have saleables. 3 classes of minerals. I don't have time to get into it today. We can talk more about that. What I want to tell you, though, is we've gone into an era here in the last 2 to 3 years, 2 years, of negative mining, where we actually have more mines closed. How can I say this? There's a negative number of mines being opened, if that makes sense. In other words, we're not opening mines, we're losing mines every year. The permits are being revoked, they're being closed, they're not having their environmental things reviewed. And of course, environmental lawfare is just destroying our mining sector. This is a problem. So, okay, how to keep track and what to do. I told you, go to USGS.gov, Mineral Commodity Summary 2024. You might say, wait a minute, we're in 2024. They're always a year ahead with the title. This is all 2023 stats. I love USGS. I started my career here, and I spent a good chunk of my early years here. It is a venerable, historic, unbelievable organization to work for and with. When its twin cousin or sister or brother, whatever, the Bureau of Mines was shut down, the USGS took on a lot of the responsibility and the data gathering and the repository. I saw these cardboard boxes coming in by the thousands into the basement of headquarters in Reston, Virginia. They do an admirable job, but they do not do what the Bureau of Mines did, and that was the deep second and third order analysis of mineral forecasting, geopolitical forecasting, mining technology, research, all of the great things that the Bureau of Mines did, and it is gone. And you know who complains the loudest about the Bureau of Mines not being here? Foreign scientists and engineers. Because the Bureau of Mines would produce reports from other countries better than those countries could produce for themselves. So it wasn't a national hit. It was a global hit, and it was a cheap hit because they wanted to reduce the number of federal agencies, and they picked the wrong damn one. The massive budget of the Bureau of Mines when it was closed, are you ready for the massive number? Is everybody 120 million. And they fired 1,200 people, half of whom were world-class mining engineers, scientists, geologists, hard rockers. As great as the data gathering capability of USGS is, and this is one of the three, I'm going to show you the three most popular figures in every year's mineral commodity summary. This is sometimes referred to as the tornado chart. And okay, no one can argue with USGS data. It's the gold standard. My problem is it's hard to work with. You can rip this sheet out of the book and walk away, and you would have enough food for thought for a long, long time. But it should be easier to get to and easier to talk to a policymaker about this. Policymaker, well, not only them, anybody might just, well, you could leave this on your nightstand and it might put you to sleep if you're kind of an insomniac, you know. The other popular diagram in the mineral commodity summary is the global. You've all seen this. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. This is usually figure 3. Every year it's the same, except for the number of countries we're importing from, and they're in colors. There's the code. I won't bore you. You can look it up, and you'll have these slides, right, John? All these up. A relatively new diagram in the mineral commodity summary shows you what the USGS considers primary mining. That bullseye in the middle are your primary minerals mined in this country, okay, metals. And then as you move out of the bullseye, you're seeing co-products and byproducts, and the concentric circles are 20%, 20, 40, 60, 80, 100% of the value of the principal product. So this little diagram here is worth a lot. You could tear that out of the book and you could sit and write a thesis or 2 or 3 just on that. The other go-to has to be publication of the USGS critical minerals list. And as I said a minute ago, I don't agree with some of their decisions, but they have a mathematical way to arrive at what should and shouldn't be on the list, and I respect that, okay? But it comes out and it's very well done. So these two are how they're reported and who does it and how they do it, and I feel comfortable with this, okay? But more needs to be done. Again, this is not workable for most, but on here, let me tell you what you're looking at. 58 commodities, okay, on the vertical axis. The bars, the blue bars, are kind of a distraction, okay? You don't need them. You can convert this to a table, but it's really bland to look at. On the right are the countries where these commodities are sourced from, and on each line they're listed in the order of in other words, the country furthest to the left is the most, and then in the order of diminishing import numbers. You know, if you go down halfway and you say, well, look, we're importing peat from Albania no, we don't care about that. What we care about is the critical minerals, thorium, uranium, critical minerals. And to get that information out of here, this one, like I did 7 years ago, this is a 2016 version, you have to dig and tear the data apart. The data's all there. You have to dig it out. And this one here, you can see that this blood, sweat, there's some coffee stains on there. There's a lot of magic marker juice on that page. But from this, I've come up with a plan. I just take and whack the 50% mark. If we're importing it below 50%, I just take that off for the time being, and I say, here you have 50% imports and up, okay? 48 commodities greater than 50%, still unworkable. So what I've done here, I've said, okay, we're getting rid of the onesies and twosies, the Albania, the Serbia, the Peru. These are the countries, the heavy-hitting countries on the right-hand side in red, China in blue, Russia in their Soviet ilk, and then the other black letters just say others. If we're importing something from Canada, I'm not going to worry about it right now, okay? And then I left the commodities there. It's not up to me to change that. It would be, but I did put an arrow pointing out rare earth elements that are still grouped for the sake of this. But in reality, the rare earths are broken out, and I'll show you that in a minute. But this is not enough. The USGS has the list of critical minerals. There it is there on the left, and they have this tornado chart on the right. You need to put them together and start color-coding these things and producing reports saying, look, for magnesium, these countries, we're importing this percent, and so forth and so on, and make it more workable, and it would be, for policymakers, a bigger help. Here are just the minerals being imported to the United States at 100%. So the first 15, there's 30 now, first 15 are alphabetical because they can be, they're all at 100%, right? And the second 15 you see there along the blue line are all the rare earth metals. So there's 29 or 30 at 100%. And this is probably the most painful chart I'm going to show you because it tells you, and look on the right now, look at the countries where they're coming from. So we are really in a headlock. The Chinese have us in a headlock over these. And by the way, I want to point out, and Jim helped me with this, look, if you look in the rare earths listed, you've got neodymium, praseodymium. Those are required absolutely for magnet making, for your standard magnets. But it is the holmium, the terbium, and the dysprosium that is necessary for the high operating temperature magnets that are really, really important, okay? And so I've color-coded those orange and red, respectively. Scandium and yttrium in yellow, some people don't acknowledge that they are rare earths, but there they are, okay? So that's the numbers, and that's what they look like. Okay, now it's time, in a few minutes left, to step back and let me show you how I took the analysis of this. Number one, we're importing from no less than 57 countries, okay? 58 commodities, plus the 15 rare earths, if they're counted separately, gives you 73 commodities, more than 25%. Okay, let's jump down. 48 commodities, or 62 at 50%, and the 30 I just showed you at 100%. You can see how bad they get. It's bad meaning how serious it is as you get up there into the really critical and the rare earth metals. Here's how you can evaluate those three things. 70% of the imports to this country of our critical minerals and a few others, 70% of the 100% of consumables, 70% of that is coming from adversaries. Okay? Is that a problem? Yes. I already told you what was added and removed from the critical minerals list. I'll skip that. I'll just say that the mineral imports now are out of control, and that we could be, I think we are headed to a black swan event. Everybody know what that is? Okay, a black swan event is rare usually. Hopefully they don't become unrare. Oftentimes it could be war, and it would be, who would be in there? How about Russia? How about Russia? Russia, right? Ukraine, China, Israel, Iran. Not that we were at war with Israel or any of these, but I'm just saying these represent flashpoints over resource wars that are actually ongoing right now. So think of that. Black swans are usually a surprise, kind of like the Arab oil embargo. Most of you lived through that. That was a surprise and a disappointment in the way we handled our oil. There was no shortage of oil. It was the way we handled it. And the escalation of trade restrictions. Is that happening now? Yes, very much so. Let me show you. Bear with me with these headlines. I just threw this together for the sake of this PowerPoint, but look, the second half of last year was horrible. China trade restricted the United States from gallium on August 1. Those are some of just the pedestrian links to the media. Okay, there's others better, but I just have these here. The same day they restricted germanium. A couple of months later, they trade restricted, we were told by the administration not to worry about rare earth elements, that Vital Metals up in Canada was going to supply everything we needed. Good. And then on October 6th, they went bankrupt. So, and then a week later, the Vietnamese police arrested Lưu Thuan. He's in jail. All his lab equipment, I guess, is confiscated. All of the samples he was working with, all of his colleagues are probably in prison with him. Hey, the Chinese do not want rare earth production done outside of China. And these guys they play rough, okay? Also, Lyoness, on again, off again, on again with Malaysia. That's on hold. I think it might be up and running now, but we don't know. China later that month restricted graphite. Are you kidding me? Now you have the 3 Gs, gallium, germanium, and graphite. 3 of the most critical minerals. And one thing they have in common, those 3 and 3 or 4 others are the main critical minerals that we need for what? The grid, the electrical grid. And China knows it. So the next time you hear about blackout, brownout, I want you to be thinking, maybe it's not the power generation, maybe it's the ability that we don't have the material we need. Then toward the end of the year, China they shut down rare earth processing technology. Done, okay? So that was the way 2023 closed out. So there's a word for what's going on here in the U.S., and our so-called critical mineral policy right now, okay? And the word is not a black swan event. It's probably just a good old-fashioned butt kicking is what's happening to us. And it's happening because why? We don't have a critical mineral policy. We don't have a mining policy. We have a patchwork quilt of, okay. And our little friend there in the lower right-hand corner couldn't be happier. You see him there, smiling away? It's perfect for them. They've got all the cards. Okay, how to analyze, let's get down on a third order. First order, USGS, second order, I showed you the numbers, third order. Okay, the what, the so what, this is the so what of the so what, okay? Can the U.S. adapt to a critical mineral trade restriction? No. Embargo? Well, wait, we'll use our stockpile. We don't have a stockpile. It was all sold off after the Cold War. Dang it. Stable supply chains? Whose? Where are they? Imports from allies, that's right. That's what we're going to do. We're going to borrow from Canada and Australia. We'll be fine. But no, they have problems too. They have problems like we do. Here's the thing. There's a buzzword out now called friendshoring. Friendshoring, okay? You give me what I need, the critical minerals, okay, and I'm going to do, so we're going to be friends and we're going to share. Folks, our country has to mine things in order to be able to friendshore them. These guys want friendshore this way and nothing that way. It doesn't work. We look like a joke on the world stage. We're not mining when we have an embarrassment of riches. This is not good. And you can read there, there's no real national policy, and I said that, and there's no freaking Bureau of Mines. Nobody at the federal level representing the mining industry. Not good. We are the only G20 country, or the only industrial country in the world without a Bureau of Mines. I had my assistant research every country going down, I think 100 out of the 200 countries. All of them have some kind of Bureau of Mines, Bureau of Minerals, Bureau of Commodities, something. We have bupkis, okay? This is, and then EO 13817, that was a good start, but we need to start mining now. There's a negative attitude on mining, and you can see for yourself. Reforming our mining means really eliminating it. The brass ring is to get rid of mining and lock down all federal lands. Meanwhile, full blast on the other side of the earth, China's going wild. Mining, minerals, metallurgy, rare earth institutes, full bore all day long. And there's my little friend again, he's happy. They have apparently a burgeoning middle class. They need minerals and metals now, so I expect their exports to start to be reduced anyway. But more than that, these guys have in their culture metals and minerals. They have for thousands of years. Look on the right-hand side there. Metal is part of their chi. How are you going to fight that, or how are you going to compete with that? Plus, these guys are state-owned enterprises. We're capitalists. They can take a loss all day long. Now, this is where I grew up, in Pittsburgh, PA, okay? And that's my hometown. There's where I grew up. There's a city skyline in the back. That's where I worked for a couple of years. That is gone. They cut that up and barged it down the Mississippi, and they barged it to China, and they made scrap out of it. Are you kidding me? So, how do we compete? We don't make stuff, okay? They're making stuff, and they're just eating our lunch. And I can prove it right now. If you look from 2000 to 2015, those are the number of mine startups, critical hard rock mineral mine startups, not coal or uranium. These are critical hard rock minerals in this country, Australia, and Canada. Look at the green bars. Look how sad. Look how sad. Between 0 and 5, it went up a little bit, down a little bit, and then under President Trump, it went up pretty good, and now it's down to 0. And then remember I said a couple minutes ago, now it's below 0, because permits and revocations of active mines are being taken away. So first time in American history, we're negative mining, and you have to be careful how you explain that to policymakers. Some of them don't get it. And I won't go through this in much detail, but it takes about 10 plus years to develop a mine. Hey, we have a problem with workforce, too. I heard somebody say here, we have a nuclear workforce issue. Same thing in mining. Kids need to know that they can come into mining and make a fortune out of school and not worry about it. Here's a global trend. Look at the U.S. All the numbers below are in brackets, meaning negative, except molybdenum. Okay. Look at China. Look at Zambia with their copper. It's unbelievable. Congress, regulatory help? Nah. They propose these same bills year after year. They go nowhere. So our mineral wealth really is ours, not Washington's. So right now, Washington has a stranglehold, and what we need to do is have an American mining template look much like American oil and gas and energy did. We came out of that, and now we became energy independent, energy dominant even. We need to get toward mineral independence, or we are in trouble. This is ridiculous. I don't care what political party's in there. They should be thinking about this. Is the bipartisan issue of the century, our resources, right? Now, I wrote a book on this topic. There it is there. I was going to discuss it more, but I'm afraid John will criticize my cover art. But what we need to do is recalibrate the federal role. Bureau of Mines people, okay? Upgrade the university geology and mineral mining and mining engineering programs. Come on. Protect our environment with, hey, listen, it's not disinformation or truth-telling. I just say it's an out-and-out lie. When I'm interviewed, and I'm interviewed a lot, I just say to people, it is a lie that we can't have a clean environment and mining at the same time. That's not an opinion. It's a lie. We can have both. This is the United States. So you need to ask your congressmen, senators, you need to get involved and talk to them. Say, look, we need this. Here's my new book, Undermining Power. We need to throw off some of the disinformation about mining, minerals, and what the hell is going on. This is ridiculous, okay? And just so you know, in closing, you know, the Chinese, they have a program. It's called Dragon Bridge. Anybody ever hear of Operation Dragon Bridge? Okay, real quickly. They're paying indigenous tribes in Canada, and I was up there, I know that's true, and they're paying Indian tribes, they're paying them to lawyer up and foment trouble for mining, and they're also paying NGOs, ENGO, environmental non-government, to file lawfare. So our mining, you know, we're strangling ourselves. The Chinese know they're using our laws, rules, and regulations against us like you can't believe. These guys are masters. And in a way, in a grudging way, I admire what they've done. Here and in their country, they are the masters, and we are not. But at one time, we were the masters of rare earth. Thorium, uranium, nuclear, critical minerals, many of which are needed for the uranium and thorium industries. We are brothers, okay? We need to unite, and we need to get these policymakers smart and tell them, look, we can do this and still have a good environment. We don't need to be victims of disinformation, and that's what's happening, and the Chinese know how to play that card very well. So I'll end it here. John, thank you again. Yeah.
I'm from Canada, and I am hearing about what you're talking about. Is there anything more specific you can say about other countries' influence in Canada in regards to mining?
Operation Dragon Bridge is the name of the operation being run, okay, against the great mining economies in the world by the Chinese. Canada, Australia, US, sort of, Sweden, big one, okay, where they can get in and foment unrest and disinformation about mining, okay, and it's successful. Canada's starting to fall victim to that. The indigenous people are not happy, and you know, your government's going to have to figure out how to handle that.
Is your book a recommendation for Canadians as well? Like, is that the last book, is that for Canadians as well?
Listen, I would say whatever I say about our country, I wouldn't be a hypocrite. I'd say yes to Canada, our great friend. Listen, in my book, Groundbreaking, America's Quest for Mineral Independence, I spent a whole chapter saying how we here should do what the Canadians and the Australians do, and that is they love their mineral wealth. This is the only country in the world that I know of that actually shuns their mineral wealth like they're embarrassed of it. And we would never use our wealth for geopolitical influence. No, we wouldn't.
What happened to the political lobby in Washington for the mining industry? There used to be something called the National Mining Association, and I mean, I see your organization based on K Street. Are there any others? What happened to this feature of the mining industry?
Okay, National Mining Association, NMA, National Mining Association, based on Constitution Avenue in D.C. Most of their clients are coal, okay? This is not coal, this is hard rock. AEMA, American Exploration and Mining Association, those are the hard rockers. They're out in Spokane, okay? You know, that distance sort of saps a little bit of their political strength. They're working hard, but this is a deeply ingrained thing, and I don't know how we're going to get rid of it except through education.
Pulling the, what? That's, Ned's the best.